Today we have Sudie Rakusin as a part of our Creativity Summit. Sudie is a visual artist, a sculptor, an author, an illustrator, and publisher. Born and raised in Washington, D.C., she currently resides in Hillsborough, North Carolina. She received her BFA in painting from Boston University, her MFA in painting from the University of Arizona. Being an animal activist and feminist, her artwork flows from what moves her and from where she finds beauty: women, animals, the earth, color, pattern, and light. Sudie's art represents the deep connection she feels with these elements. Through her artwork, she creates the world as she would like it to be, where harmony exists between animal and human, and where nature thrives. Her work includes pen and ink drawings, papier-mâché sculptures, vessels, abstracts in cold wax and oil, and three-dimensional oil-on-canvas paintings featuring women and animals. Her paintings test the boundaries of what a painting is. These works are created on a free-form canvas and involve papier-mâché, sculpture, beadwork, and mixed media. Art is where I go for refuge, replenishing, and how I pay homage to sustain homage to what sustains me. Sudie Rakusin, it is such an honor to get to interview you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I love your work. So I've gotten to see your books, your goddess cards, your coloring books. It's just absolutely amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to your work as an artist?
Well, one of the questions that you did send me was, when did you decide to become an artist? And my answer to that is that I didn't really decide that I came onto the planet knowing this was the one sure thing that I knew. My mother always told the stories that when I needed her to explain something to me, when I didn't understand something, I would say, draw me a picture. This is my language. And someone's coming down. If it interrupts, this is my life. Welcome to it.
That's wonderful.
So it wasn't a decision that I ever made. It was just this thing that I always did, that has always been a part of me. I feel that it's the best part of me because it's the most developed and evolved.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. I mean, I'm just wondering, do you have a definition of creativity?
I don't know if I that's a really hard question, and I feel like there are so many ways to for somebody to express themselves, and they're all valid, and they're all varied, and they all have value. So, I don't really know if I can answer that question.
Yeah. And I'm thinking back to the imagery that you created when you were talking about that, like it's something that's always been in you.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like if it's always been a part of us, that defining it might even be difficult.
Yeah, it's like I can't really separate being creative with who I am as a woman on the planet. That this is just, it's something that I do. It's something that I've always done. I mean, I can give you an example of one of my days.
I would love
I am really, really fortunate right now to live in the situation that I live in. I have a little house and a meadow, and I have a big, beautiful studio that this is its second or third renovation now, where I don't paint where I live. I've always painted where I've lived. It's always been the biggest room in my house or my apartment has always been my studio. So I wake up in the morning. Right now I'm celery juicing, if that interests you. It's terrible.
It does. Yeah.
I put on my coat, and my dogs and I walk across the meadow to the studio where I feed them. Then I do a little exercise, and then I come down and work. And if I have to go out to run errands or to go to an appointment, I do that. But if I don't have to leave, I don't. So this is my life and this is my world. So I'm always in a constant state of in the middle of a piece, thinking about a new piece, struggling with it. It's always on my mind. It's like I dream about it. I think about it. I live it. I do sketches when I'm not home. I sketch when I'm in my car, thinking about to a painting or a sculpture.
Yeah. And I know I gave you kind of an outline of some questions, but you say things and then I get really excited about what you're saying. I'm curious, like, how do you decide what type of art you want to be working on? I mean, you've done children's books, you've done the goddess cards, you've done coloring books. Like, how do you decide, like, or your paper mache, like, how do you decide, like, this is what I'm called to right now?
Once again, I almost feel like it's not a decision that I make. The universe, some other entity is, or like I'll be painting, I'll be doing the 3D paintings, and that's a lot of color, it's a lot of sculpture, and I'll sort of need the simplicity of black and white. So I'll do pen and ink drawings for a while, and with I was doing these abstract. The way the abstract came about was a few years ago. I was sort of at the end of some of my big 3D paintings, and I was painting on stone. I was doing those lace rooms. I did 116 of them. When I get started, it's like, step aside. This is where I am. So the word altar came into my mind. So I wrote it down in my sketchbook, and it started like fleshing itself out. Like I saw doors with hinges, and I saw drawer pulls as the handles for the doors. But how I saw the doors was abstract. I've never done abstract before. I was classically trained as a figurative painter, and I've never done abstract before. I always think of fields of color as a nice place to put a springbok or a leopard or a woman walking across. So I started thinking about abstract. I looked on Pinterest, YouTube, like, what do abstract artists, what are the materials that they use? What does abstract even look like? So I made a list. I went to Jerry's Artorama. I got palette knives and cold wax and small panels, because you have to, with cold wax, you have to have a hard surface. And I just started teaching myself how to do it.
Wow.
In order to make the doors for the altars abstract. And that's how that started. And then I just got fascinated by it. And I've been doing abstract on panels, and then I went to Arches oil paint. I did a lot of paintings on that thick paper with oil, and I'm still with it. It's just fascinating to me. It's so difficult. It's so much harder for me than figurative work. It's like, and I keep on making larger and larger panels. My largest one now is 36 inches by 36, which is, for me, a huge area of space to not know where I'm going.
Yeah.
If you're doing 3 feet by 3 feet, because when I'm painting a deer or a cat or a bowl of fruit, I know what it's supposed to look like. I know where I'm going, and I know where it ends. With abstract, I have no clue. So it fascinates me.
Yeah.
And I'm Aries, and I need to be occupied. Something needs to hold my interest, and abstract still does, as hard as it is for me. I say I have a love-hate relationship with it.
I understand that. Sudie, I'm so curious about your goddess cards. And I promise I'll get back on script in a little
sure.
bit. But how did they all come to you divinely the way your art came to you?
Well, with the goddesses, a while ago, I also really had never done pen and ink. So I taught myself how to use pen and ink, and that was in the early 80s. And who I learned from was looking at Aubrey Beardsley's pen and ink drawings of like Salome. And my early pen and ink drawings look exactly like Aubrey Beardsley's, poor copies of Aubrey Beardsley's. And I was doing goddesses. There's a wonderful book by Patricia Monahan about goddesses, A to Z. And I started in the A's, and I just kept on. Hold on, let me turn this off. Sorry. I don't even know how to turn it off. I'm such a Luddite. Anyway, so where was I? So I just started drawing goddesses, and I sent them. This was before internet, email, so I made copies of about 8 or 10 of these goddesses, and I mailed them to Patricia Monahan and said, "Thank you for your inspiration, and this is what happened, what came of this." From that, a couple of years later, she asked me to illustrate one of her poetry books, Seasons of the Witch. It's a beautiful, beautiful, very intimate book. I don't know if it's, you might be able to find it like eBay or something like that, but it's a beautiful, very intimate book. And then there was this magazine called Of a Like Mind, which was a feminist and very spiritual, goddess-oriented. And I started sending them goddesses, and they started, for each of their issues, they loved my work so much, I became like a centerfold. So they would send me the theme and the goddesses that they were focusing on for the next issue, and I would just draw. So that's why I have so many pen and ink drawings of goddesses. I have probably 50 drawings of goddesses. So that's how they came about.
Mm.
Then I had a yoga summer a couple of years ago. I went to Feathered Pipe in Montana, and I went to Estes Park for the yoga. Hold on a minute, just hold on. I'm sorry. Fiona, honey, come here. It's my Great Dane.
Do we get to meet her?
I don't know. Can you see her?
No, we can't see her.
Big. Anyway, so I was reading this book, and I can't remember her name right now. I think it's Patricia. No, I can't remember. But there was a young warfare guerrilla, and every time she did something brave, she would pray to Santa Lucia, to her saint. So I said, I'm going to do a series of saints. In art history, the way saints are depicted are always how they've been martyred. You know, it's like a knife to, crown of thorns, the wheel. And I was like, that's not for me. I'm not going to, do blood dripping down it. So I had a dream. I woke up from a dream one morning with a voice in my head that said, Saint Cumulus, the saint of clouds, make your own saints. So I was like, I can do this. So I thought about, I gave a bunch of saints. I gave them jobs. I gave them nationalities. I looked up on the internet, like how to say Saint of Constellations in Spanish, how to say the Saint of Wandering in Welsh. And then because, for instance, the goddesses have their own myth, I was going to, write the myth for these particular goddesses, for these particular saints. So I did 19 of them. And at 8, I went out to lunch with a friend of mine, and I showed him printed color copies of 8 of the saints. And he looked at me and he said, you could make a deck. You could make your own deck. So it took me a few years, but it was like a couple of years ago, and I finally decided, this is the year I'm going to make my own deck. So I had the 36 pen and ink drawings of the goddesses, and I had the 19 paintings of the saints. And I wrote myths for the saints, and I compiled the little book, and I put in there how to make them your own and different possibilities for spreads, and that's how they came about.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I asked a question about a ritual. So do you have any creative rituals? And I know that you talked about how in the morning you walk with your dogs into the meadow, and then you do some yoga. Are there other creative rituals that you use to cultivate your creative practice?
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I was thinking about this, and one thing that I do when I'm starting a new project is I clean up. I have a big palette. I'll clean my palette. I'll clean my brushes. That's what I actually, because I'm starting 2 new paintings. I started 2 new paintings yesterday, and I have all my supplies. What I feel is that this is a gift. This is my gift this lifetime from the universe, and out of respect, I am the conduit. I am the vessel that all of this magnificence comes through. And out of respect, I need to keep my conduit as debris-free, as clean and open as possible. So even when I don't have ideas, I will come to the table, or I will come to the palette. Usually my ideas start in my sketchbook. So I come to the table with my sketchbook, and I just say, I'm ready. Bring it on, bring it to me. And gratefully, most of the time it comes. I have a very hard time when I've ended a painting and I don't have the next one in line. And it's really hard for me. I don't like that period of time, even though I know it's necessary to gestate. That's actually one of my saints, is she's Santa Flores, these Spanish Santa flowers, which is about, you don't pick the flower before it's bloomed, and that every stage from bud to blossom is important and deserves respect. So
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. I'm also curious, how do you feel like creativity helps you access your own inner wisdom?
I was thinking about this, and it's kind of difficult in a way. I mean, I know that I learn lessons in my work, like when it's time to let go of something. I'll love a piece in a painting. Okay, I have a story. Okay. This was years ago when I was painting figuratively. Every friend of mine I recruited to pose for me. And I was doing this one painting of, and each friend, I would ask them to give me their symbols, their totems, their icons, whatever was important to them. Like, for instance, my friend Deborah wanted to be painted in her red silk kimono, and she loved flowers, and she loved shells, and she wanted a flame coming out of her heart. Done. One of my friends wanted to be a tarot card. She wanted to be the Queen of Cups. This other friend, Lucia, I was painting her. She had a postcard of a location that was meaningful to her. And I had this really beautiful bud vase with a rose sitting on a table that was right next to her. it wasn't working. It wasn't working. But I loved the flower, and I loved the vase, and I knew I had to let it go. And I painted it. I painted around it. I mean, I painted the vase off, and I had the rose floating in the air, and I had to let it go. And sometimes you just have to let go. Like, you know, those are the kind of lessons that I learned with my work. There, you know, that is one of them. I'm trying to think of other things, but
that's a beautiful lesson. And
yeah.
what a gift for your friends as well, to have you create something like of them.
This one friend of mine who did astrology, I painted her one time with her astrological chart behind her in silver. Really beautiful. The next time I painted her, she walks into my apartment. She goes, "I want you to paint me as a mermaid with a siren as my pet."
That's amazing. Wow, a siren as your pet. That's so good.
A pet siren that was sort of just floating in the air by her.
How do you consider yourself like a creativepreneur? Are you familiar
That's
with
the word I being an Aries, I have ideas all the time. Some ideas are, you know, and I'm a manifester too. So, um, um, and some of my ideas are just, you know, over the top. Maybe I shouldn't have manifested. Maybe I should have just sat back. But working with Betsy has been amazing because she and I have a similar energy, like we feed off of each other. She's definitely a creativepreneur.
Yes, it is.
And we encourage and support each other that way. Like my ideas, and she'll go, "Yes, and then we can do this, and then we can do that." So, I mean, maybe I am. You know, I've never thought. I mean, it's almost like somebody else needs to label me that, because it holds a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I for sure see you as a creativepreneur. I mean, with the depth and breadth of the body of work that you've done, and how you've marketed yourself, and I mean, you have your own publishing company. I mean, all of the things that you've put together are just pretty amazing. And I'm wondering if you have any words of wisdom to share with those that, like if somebody wants to really put their work out there more, if you have any words of wisdom.
Well, honestly, I think that's the hardest piece. And I don't know if I have words of wisdom, because that is the struggle that I think we have. I can tell you the things that I've done. I became a publishing company because I had to. If I wanted to, I can't remember if my coloring book was first or my children's book, but in order to get an ISBN number, you have to be something. So I made myself Winged Willow Press, and Willow was my first dog familiar, and that's how the logo came about and the name of the press came about. I don't know if I would made myself a press, but in order to get ISBN numbers, I bought 10. So I think I have a couple left still. And so because I want women to have my work, it was really important for women to have my work, because I felt like I was speaking to them. I was speaking their language. I see beauty in a lot of sizes, shapes, and color of women. And I wanted to give that back to them. And not every woman can afford, you know, a couple $1,000 paintings. So I thought of making note cards. And my one of the first things that I did was a blank journal, The Dreams and Shadows. It was actually my second blank journal, and women would buy that and say, "Oh, I love your pen and ink drawings, but I just can't color them in because they're just so beautiful." So that was the impetus for me to make a coloring book of my pen and ink drawings. And the introduction is me saying, you are welcome to color, and the most important thing is you don't have to stay inside the lines. But giving women permission to color and add. And so I've done note cards, I did the journey cards, I've done the coloring books, I've done the blank journals, I've done the children's books. I've done a lot.
An app? You have a coloring app? I mean, you've done so many things.
So here's the piece. How do you get that out into the world? You've got all of these products that you want to give out there. How do you get them out into the world? That's marketing. Marketing is the hardest part, the hardest piece. And it's a skill set that I don't have, but I'm learning, So I have all these products. I have a shed. Because, and this, I won't do this again, but my packs, my note card packets, I would have 1,000 printed. I have a shed filled with my stuff. I'm not doing that anymore. If I do an abstract note card, I'll make 5.
Right.
Right.
Sell like that.
So that is empty. So,
and I hope everyone watching goes to your Etsy shop and goes and orders some coloring books and notebooks and note cards.
Yes, please. Yeah. Yes. And through this, I've got the discount code, and there's free shipping. So I'm trying. I'm doing my best here.
You are, and you're doing great. So that's your gift to everyone, right? You're giving everyone a discount code, and and we'll put that and a link to your Etsy shop below as well. Below the interview. Is there anything else you'd like to share about creativity or your creative process?
Let's see. What I want to support and encourage in other women is to be brave, and to not be afraid to fail, not to see, what, if you want to embark on a new medium, or you want to try something that you've never tried before, that the first piece you do does not have to be a masterpiece. That it's all a piece. It's all a part of the process. It's part of the journey, and the journey can be wonderful to take the pressure off of having to create a magnificent anything. That just experiment and try and fail and do something amazing, and tack the pieces up on your wall and live with them, and enjoy the process.
Sudie, thank you so much for being a part of this.
I do want to say one more thing.
Yes.
That I created a really wonderful Saint and Goddess workshop from the journey cards. And I did my first one last Saturday. It was a huge success, and I want to keep doing them. And I have one more that's through Frank on December 14th. I want to do one for teenage girls. I think it would be fabulous. And Betsy and I are going to do one that combines yoga and creating a piece of art. And what the workshop is that each woman imagines themselves, what is their guidance? What have they learned? Who would they be if they were a saint or goddess? What would their name be? And they get to create it. I have like every craft material you can possibly imagine: ribbon and bead and tissue and pink and decoupage and glitter and sand and flowers and leaves. And the women who came last Saturday did amazing things, and they created their myth. So I would love to keep doing these workshops. I feel like this is a way to support and encourage all women's inner saint and goddess.
I love that so much. And I'm just going to tell everyone they need to sign up for your email on your website.
Please.
I'll make sure we link to that so that when you are doing workshops like that, people can sign up, because that would be an amazing workshop to go to.
It would be great for someone to do it for their birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring out how to do a travel, how to take my giant containers of art supplies and travel with them. So, we can work this out.
That's awesome. Well, Sudie, thank you so much for being a part of this workshop. It has been such an honor to get to interview you today.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.